On May 19, 2025, Riot Games announced their second inductee into the Hall of Legends. The decision was faced with mixed reactions, some claiming the induction was deserved, while others pointed at blemishes in Uzi's career to discredit the decision. However, one thing was clear: Uzi's story and his greatness have been somewhat lost to time. Unlike Faker, the first inductee, who is still actively competing at a top level today, Uzi's career effectively ended in 2019. For those who don't remember, or for those who were never there to witness it, Uzi being the second choice may seem odd or incorrect, but for the people who lived through it, for the ones who followed his journey from the start, there was never any other option.
Uzi into the fight afterwards, Encore comes through, MLXG's into it, but are they able to take it? The Heartbreaker resets coming through, and they can't do it. Uzi is still alive and kicking, and Uzi is trying to carry the game right now. He can't get through the wind wall, but he can get through the health punch, the flash, the kills, the Uzi flash!
Behind the MLXG is here, he's moved on the front line, Gavin dishing out as much damage as possibly can, weaves through the pin, Redemption is there to back him up, Baron is dropping, but no one is taking it, the backing off, Uzi's going in, Expect needs to go bigger, but it's too little too late, Uzi is cutting through G2, Expect finally gonna knock Uzi to the wall, but it does not matter, Parks get out for free, but it's G2 who pay the price. It's not a Penta, but it feels...
Jian Zuhao was born in April 1997 in China's Hubei province. When he was still a kid, his family moved to Weizhou, where he happened to discover League of Legends. Curiosity turned into obsession, and what looked like a harmless pastime became the opening chapter of a legend. At 15, he was already tearing through China's amateur circuit with uncommon ferocity. That caught the eye of Royal Club, one of the founding teams of the newly formed LPL. Very quickly, Uzi showed off his insane mechanical prowess. Paired with Tabe in support, one of the great minds of the game, Royal Club established themselves as a strong force. Uzi's main draw though, and what would end up becoming the defining trait of his entire playstyle, was obvious immediately. With relentless surgical aggression, Uzi turned the bottom lane into the sole focal point of the game, forcing the entire map to play around him. With the premier duo and unique playstyle, Royal Club brute forced their way into the Season 3 China Regional Finals, where they would be knocked down by tournament favorites OMG early, battle their way through the lower bracket, and topple OMG 3-1 in the rematch and finals to obtain the first seed at Worlds 2013. Due to the format of the tournament, Uzi would make his debut on the international stage in the quarterfinals, where a rematch with OMG was waiting. OMG had looked strong in groups with a tied first 7-1 record, but quarterfinals was nothing more than a stepping stone for Uzi to show off what he was made of. Afterwards, he bulldozed EU's #1 seed Fnatic in the semifinals, sealing an epic Game 4 comeback on Caitlyn.
It's a taunt onto Yellow Star only. They do come up with the one kill they need, but very low. Goblin trying to get out. Whites goes down as well. Fnatic's going to continue.
Sonya's Hourglass was used and burnt, and well, Royal going to turn this one around. So as is going to get the target. Uzi is not getting focused, but there it is. Pushu gets on towards it. Tabe going to be next. The ace will come out, and the quadra kill for Pushu.
If they can get Uzi, they may get the damage out, but the DPS is still there, D-Man. They're moving on to the Nexus.
That was the big if, and they could not do it. Uzi is alive. Uzi is doing damage. It's Royal Club going through to the grand final against SK Telecom T1.
In just 2 short series, Uzi had proven that he was quite one of, if not the, most mechanically talented players in the world. He was a young star on the rise, and it seemed like nothing could stop him. All that was left between Royal Club and a Worlds victory for China was the 3rd seed from Korea, a team with a young star of their own named Faker. This encounter would become the first of many between Uzi and Faker, and the first of what would seem like an unbreakable trend. Even on his signature Vayne, Uzi was overwhelmed by Faker and company in a 3-0 stomp. But the message was clear: a new era for marksmen had begun. In 2014, Royal Club rebranded as Starhorn Royal Club. The roster faced some disarray at first with the departure of Tabe, who was already at the tail end of his career as a player. The ensuing roster shuffle briefly pushed Uzi into the mid lane, but he was put back into his native role just in time for the LPL summer split. This time around, the roster tried a different approach. It was clear from the results so far that Korea was a step above China, so the team imported 2 Koreans onto their team. Zero, a player who had experience in 3 different roles, and Insec, a legend of the game and considered one of the great Korean junglers of the early era. It was a bold bid to counter South Korea's technical surge, a region that now ruled the esport with steel discipline and airtight macro play. The new-look Royal Club started out good, but not great. They finished 3rd in the regular season and 3rd again in playoffs. Throughout this run, Uzi never slowed. He was the roster's heart, and the team easily won 4 straight games to qualify for Worlds for the 2nd year in a row. This time around, the format for Worlds had changed, and there would be no shortcuts into the knockout stage. Every team had to participate in groups, and Royal Club wouldn't have it easy. They had to match up against North America's #1 seed, TSM, in a time when NA was actually still considered a good region, and they also had to face off against the Taipei Assassins, who retained some of their roster from their Season 2 Worlds victory. Royal Club would split games with TSM, but clean sweep everyone else to end the group 5-1 and place them back into quarterfinals. Once there, the road to finals was long and harsh. They had to battle the LPL champions EDG in a 5-game series, and then endure yet another 5-game series against OMG. Despite the grueling path necessary though, Uzi would carry his team back to the grand finals, being the first player in history to reach that stage back-to-back at just the young age of 17. This time, their opponent in the finals was Samsung White, a team so flawless it seemed scripted. Looper, a stalwart of the top lane who was unbreakable. Dandy, considered by far the best jungler in the world, and to this day is considered to have had the greatest peak of any jungler ever. Pawn, a player who was said to be the only mid laner who could rival Faker. And finally, Imp and Mata, a bot lane duo who had already won tournaments together in the past, and who was the duo most would consider to be the best at the time. In games 1 and 2, the gap between the top side of the two teams made itself apparent. Uzi was able to win his lanes, but by the time he got out, there was no hope left for him to carry. In Game 3, Uzi put forth a Herculean effort to drag his team kicking and screaming to the enemy base, culminating in a fantastic teamfight performance to send the series to Game 4. It wouldn't be enough though, as Game 4 once again featured a topside takedown by Samsung White, leaving Uzi to only sit and watch as the chance of a world title would disappear yet again. Final score 3-1, another silver medal. Since his back-to-back finals losses, the name Uzi carried more than fame. It carried a curse. Every tournament he entered, he was the favorite. Every roster he joined was morphed into a super team. Every opponent who faced him was focused on only a single target. Unfortunately for Uzi, being the best means nothing when the world measures greatness by one metric, winning worlds. From that moment on, Uzi's mechanical talent felt irrelevant. Every brilliant outplay only sharpened the question, why hasn't he won yet? It was clear that a change needed to happen, and in December 2014, Uzi stunned the scene by walking away from Royal Club and signing with OMG. Until then, OMG sat among LPL's most respected teams, renowned for consistency with a core built around solo laners go-going and cool. With Uzi on board, it seemed like it would be simple to turn the squad into a global powerhouse. Reality, though, wrote a different script. Fractures surfaced almost at once, and tension hung over every meeting, scrim, and match. Uzi, famous for unrelenting aggression, landed on a roster built to play slow and controlled. The result? Daily style clashes. OMG toggled between two identities, and neither quite worked. The Dream Team vision dissolved and was replaced with missed synergies, mixed messages, internal squabbles, and a slew of failed roster changes. By summer, the cracks were beyond repair, and the season slipped away. Despite a solid regular season, the team crashed out early in playoffs and never made it to Worlds. Missing Worlds for the first time was perhaps the harshest blow of Uzi's career. In 2015, the team witnessed something unthinkable, a World Championship without the best ADC on the planet. Redemption beckoned in early 2016. Uzi signed with the QG Reapers, an explosive lineup celebrated for its all-in style and for nurturing rising stars like Doinb and Swift. The blueprint sounded simple: drop China's finest marksman into LPL's team of the moment and ride the hype. On paper, it looked promising, but in practice, it unraveled into one of Chinese esports' most infamous meltdowns. During the spring split, the QG backstage caught fire. What began as a tactical disagreement between jungler Swift and mid laner Doinb spiraled into a public, personal feud that split the locker room in two. The fallout was brutal. Doinb was suspended, and his stand-in Dade wasn't registered in time. Another mid picked up an injury, and the emergency sub failed to reach the venue before the deciding series. Their dream season collapsed overnight. QG Reapers forfeited their LPL semifinal, a near unheard of walk-off in Chinese playoff history. Uzi, hoping for a clean slate, found himself trapped in a crumbling locker room. No Worlds, no playoffs. 3 straight splits off the game's biggest stage, and the silence this time was deafening. Everything he touched seemed to almost work, yet the weight of expectation crushed each project before it could bloom. After QG's chaotic 2016 spring, Uzi was traded back to his home team, now rebranded as Royal Never Give Up. It was the same organization that launched his career, but now operating under a fresh banner, new staff, and higher stakes. He rejoined RNG with something to prove, not just to the fans, but to himself. With the new team featuring proven talents like MLXG and Xiaohu, Uzi and RNG were able to place second in summer, finally granting Uzi another Worlds appearance. The expectations for RNG were lower this time around, with China's hopes being placed in EDG. Despite this, RNG would make it through their group and go to the quarterfinals, where they would meet up against a familiar foe in Faker and SKT. At this point, Faker was already the undisputed GOAT. 2 world championships, flawless mechanics, and a champion Ocean made quick work of Uzi as Faker would go on to win his 3rd title in 4 years. 2017 spring saw the final pieces of the roster click together as Uzi would be joined by support Ming to form one of the most iconic duos of all time. They would go on to win their group in regular season, and then make it all the way to the finals of playoffs where they lost against WE. Summer was a rinse-repeat with another finals berth, this time against EDG, and yet another 2nd place finish. However, Worlds this time felt more promising for Uzi. The tournament would be played on Chinese soil, a special backdrop. But more than just that, every 2 weeks, Riot releases a set of patch notes that change the way champions and items work. This is done to make sure nothing is ever too overpowered or too weak for too long. In the Worlds patch, one specific change was made that would shock the entire League world, a massive buff to an item called Ardent Sensor.
But will they play AD carry, protect him, Ardent Sensor?
This was an enchanter item that gave immense power to the target through attack speed and life gain on hit. In other words, the meta for the tournament would be focused on one specific type of champion, hypercarry marksman. Backed by a home crowd in full roar, Uzi had a chance to reshape his story. Despite their group having strong contenders like the Korean powerhouse Samsung Galaxy and the EU first seed G2, RNG would top their group convincingly and move on to quarters. There, they would dispatch Fnatic 3-1 with Uzi winning series MVP. It felt like nothing could stop Uzi. It was the perfect meta, a hypercarry marksman field with the best hypercarry marksman player the world has ever seen. RNG would be put to the ultimate test in semifinals though, with yet another meeting between Uzi and SKT, with Faker now as a defending champion looking for an unprecedented Worlds 3-peat. This time, Uzi would not go quietly. The 2 powerhouse teams traded games with Uzi carrying in Game 1 on a strong Twitch performance, Faker answering back in Game 2 with a pristine Deathless Galio showcase, Uzi responding in Game 3 with his own Deathless game on his signature Vayne, and SKT rallying back in Game 4 with strong team play. However, Faker would not be denied. After locking in Galio for the 5th straight time, SKT would demolish RNG in the final game as Faker won series MVP and headed to finals. Another Worlds, another tournament where Uzi fell short at the finish line. But this defeat felt different. Analysts and rivals alike agreed. Uzi was playing the best league of his life. Any doubt against Uzi after his turbulent team swap years had run its course, and everyone knew he was still in the conversation for the greatest mechanical talent alive. For Uzi, 2018 didn't begin with hope. It began with hunger. Hunger for redemption, for revenge, for proof he was something more than a permanent runner-up. Uzi entered the season not just as RNG's star, but as its tactical spine. The roster no longer revolved solely around his hands, it revolved around his veterancy and leadership too. The LPL Spring 2018 final put Royal Never Give Up opposite EDG, a team Uzi had tried time and time again to defeat but never could. The match was bigger than a trophy. It was Uzi's chance to shatter the curse that had haunted him for seasons. Game 1 went EDG's way, their early controls stifling RNG, but Uzi and his squad refused to crack. Over the next 3 games, he reminded everyone why his name sits in every greatest ADC debate. Rotating through Kog'Maw, Xayah, and Ashe, he spearheaded 3 straight victories, closing the series 3-1. The numbers were outrageous. A finals MVP 13.5 KDA across those wins, capped by a flawless 7-0-2 Kog'Maw that ripped through EDG's base with a decisive triple kill. The win meant far more than a single line on Uzi's resume. It ultimately crowned a career built on relentless pursuit of excellence. By finally hoisting the LPL trophy for the first time, he broke the curse forever and cemented himself as a living legend. Fresh from that maiden domestic crown in LPL Spring 2018, Uzi and RNG flew to the 2018 Mid-Season Invitational, intent on unequivocally proving their newly claimed supremacy on the global stage. The event ran from May 3rd to 20th, opening in Berlin and wrapping up inside the iconic Zenith Arena in Paris. There, RNG would be poised to face against King's Zone Dragon X, the reigning LCK champions and the overwhelming favorites to lift the trophy. The team had overwhelming amounts of talent on it, featuring Khan, Peanut, BDD, Prey, and Gorilla. After placing first in the group stage, RNG looked rock solid and cruised into the semifinals where they swept aside Fnatic 3-0 to punch a ticket to the title match. The grand final was Uzi's magnum opus. Swapping masterfully between Kai'Sa and Ezreal, he piloted RNG to a 3-1 triumph over the LCK champions. His impact was so pronounced that he walked away with tournament MVP honors, boasting an 8.6 KDA and a staggering 11.94 CS per minute. That victory did more than crown Uzi the world's best player. It also signaled the LPL's rise as a global powerhouse. more than 127 million unique viewers tuned in to one of the most watched esports matches ever. Fresh off the spring title and MSI crown, RNG entered the 2018 summer split intent on locking down domestic supremacy. With Uzi in peak form, they rolled through regular season and secured a top playoff seed. The postseason was no cakewalk. RNG battled through a gauntlet that ended in a thriller versus Invictus Gaming. RNG jumped to a 2-0 lead, IG clawed back 2-2, and everything hinged on Game 5. On Xayah, Uzi took over, guiding his squad to victory and clinching RNG's first ever LPL back-to-back championships. Uzi's playoff stat line was once again phenomenal, a 7.9 KDA across 10 games while farming 10.6 CS per minute and participating in nearly 63% of RNG's takedowns. Efficiency, dominance, and decisive shot calling, exactly what you'd expect from a legend at the height of his powers. Winning the summer split handed Royal Never Give Up a direct ticket to Worlds 2018, and an opportunity to do something that has never been done before in the history of the game, the Golden Road. Winning Spring, MSI, Summer, and Worlds. After a calendar packed with trophies, RNG arrived under a spotlight so bright it almost hurt. It was Uzi's 5th World appearance in 6 seasons, and analysts had long since crowned him the best AD carry alive. The story felt pre-written that this would be the year the last elusive trophy slid into his cabinet. Drawn into Group B with 2017 champions Gen G, Europe's Team Vitality, and North America's Cloud9, RNG played clean, finishing 5-1 and locking first seed. Uzi looked untouchable on Kai'Sa and Xayah, once again posting double-digit KDAs and lane phase CS leads that ballooned into teamfight dominance. The quarterfinal bracket offered G2 Esports, who were an easy matchup. Everyone predicted RNG to stomp G2, a slight speed bump in Uzi's Golden Road. Instead, the Europeans swung for the fences with off-meta drafts, frenetic roams, and a mid-lane masterclass from Perks that warped the map around him. The series would make it all the way to Game 5, where G2's composure outlasted RNG's aggression, resulting in what is, to this day, the greatest upset in League of Legends history. Shockwaves rippled through the fanbase. The consensus pick to hoist the Summoners Cup was gone before the semifinals. Even so, Uzi's 2018 body of work poured concrete onto his legend. Mechanical artistry, steady shot calling, and week-to-week consistency were praised from Seoul to Sao Paulo, inspiring a fresh generation of bot lane disciples. But greatness exacts a toll. Seasons of 14-hour scrim blocks, red-eye flights, and relentless stage play from the most mechanically challenging role by the most mechanically talented player finally reared its ugly head. Early in 2019, a routine physical uncovered type 2 diabetes. Doctors blamed chronic stress, weight swings, uneven meals, and too many sleepless nights. Add nagging shoulder and wrist pain, classic overuse injuries after 8 years at full throttle, and even the most celebrated hands in League had to admit their limits. 2019 would be the last season Uzi would truly be able to compete at a reasonable level. RNG would finish spring with a respectable 5th place, and would qualify for Worlds after Uzi would once again push his team to another LPL finals in summer. At Worlds, Uzi would find himself face to face with his greatest demon once again, as Faker and SKT would be placed in his group, sealing his fate. In June 2020, at just 23, Uzi announced his retirement from pro play, pointing to his health issues as the deciding factor. In a heartfelt statement, he admitted that, despite months of rehab, his body could no longer sustain the level of performance elite competition demands. The news was met with a wave of support from fans, peers, and his longtime home, RNG, all of whom praised his immeasurable impact on the team and on esports as a whole. Uzi would randomly pop up now and again for surprise comebacks, placing 8th in spring 2022 and 5th in summer 2023. He would never be the same great talent he once was, and he never saw another international tournament. As we head into 2025, the new wave of esports fans do not look upon Uzi fondly. His greatness is somewhat lost to time, and a look at his history reveals just one MSI title and a host of attempts fallen short. However, Uzi's influence over the game cannot be overstated. At every tournament he participated in, every game he played, Uzi held absolute command over the stage. He was the final boss, the unkillable monster that every team and every player needed to fear. He had a level of confidence and aura to him that no player today can even come close to rivaling, and he had the skill to back it up. His career also has to be put into context. He made Worlds 6 times in 7 years, and he was always a contender to win it all every time. People call into question why Uzi is the second nominee into the Hall of Legends after Faker, as his trophy case is barren in comparison. But if Faker is the best player of all time, who's the second best? If we take Faker out of the equation, and replay the events as if he never existed, the answer becomes obvious. Uzi ran into Faker at Worlds 4 times. Each time, it was Faker who ended Uzi's journey. Without Faker, Uzi would have at minimum 3 finals appearances, and arguably up to 4. Of those 4 appearances, he would have been the clear favorite to win it all in at least 2 of them. Without Faker, we likely would have been looking at Uzi as the one with the unbeatable trophy case and undisputable legacy as the greatest ever. Even in the timeline we live in, Uzi still has 5 quarterfinals, 3 semis, and 2 finals appearances, a career most top players wish they could have. In a game that rewrites itself every patch with new metas, champions, and runes, one name simply stayed: Uzi. Not by luck, not by nostalgia, but because no one could move him. From the moment he hit the stage, he was more than great. He was the gold standard every other ADC measured against. While the world gawked at top lane duels, mid lane outplays, and jungle rotations, Uzi turned the bottom lane into his canvas. It felt mythic. Wherever he queued up, duo lane became a solo act. And it wasn't just mechanics, it was presence. The click cadence, the microsteps, the way the whole map seemed to tilt towards bot side just because he was there. His name gathered a kind of reverence you can't explain, you can only feel. See him on the loading screen and the match already felt insurmountable. He never lifted the Summoner's Cup, but no one ever forgot his name. Because across every season and every era of League, no one else ever filled that space the same way he did. But of course, he never did manage to beat Faker. Or at least, that's what the narrative of today would tell you. Because there is one more international tournament Uzi and Faker participated in, a tournament on the same level of any international league has to offer. The Asian Games is a sports event held once every 4 years and has featured 46 different nations. It's no small deal, as the event is the second largest multisport event just behind the Olympics. The games are such a big deal that winning medals there often allows for competitors to receive honorary awards from their government, such as exemption from mandatory military service. In 2018, the Asian Games decided to add 6 different esports to the competition, including League of Legends. 8 countries from Asia, including China and Korea, would form super teams to compete for the pride of their nations and a gold medal in the prestigious event. Korea would send Keen, Score, Peanut, Faker, Ruler, and Core JJ, 6 legends of the country with a mix of domestic dominance and world's titles. China would send the equivalent of RNG with Xie. China and Korea would match up against each other in the finals, the showdown that was always meant to be, Faker versus Uzi. And this one time, this one singular time, when the stakes were at their highest, the lights at their absolute brightest, Uzi was the one who took over. A resounding 3-1 victory for Team China, and Uzi's only victory over Faker in both of their storied careers. While this event didn't award a finals MVP, the post-match interviews made it clear who the honors would have gone to. The Korean players attributed the victory to Team China's bot lane performance, and Uzi was the focus of all of the Chinese interviews. To end the video, I think it's best fitting to do it with Uzi's own words, how he felt about his own career when it was all said and done. After his victory in the Asian Games, this is what he said. Winning the Asian Games isn't the same as compared to winning other matches. It carries such a big meaning for us since we participate in the Asian Games as a representative of our country. We do get the chance to win other tournaments at least twice a year, but this one takes so much longer to win. That's why it's memorable. I am very happy. It's such a relief. To be frank, I suffered a lot of stress before the match. Finally, I fulfilled my goals.